Here's Dr. Ware. This next interview is with Coach Jesse Hicks. Jesse and I have a pretty long history together in terms of coaching, being around track and field. So this is less of an interview and just more of two friends talking. So enjoy this interaction with Mr. Jesse Hicks.
I will say it's not always easy to find that medical professional that's willing to work with an athlete and try to get them back quickly. You do a fantastic job of that. So just want to kind of give you that love, if you will, and tell you I appreciate all you do with all of our athletes, right? So as far as how I got started, I think a lot of it, as far as what I started doing originally, was out of frustration of some things back in, literally the 80s, when I was doing a lot of cycling and things to that effect, and it kind of got into the weightlifting to strengthen some things as far as joints around my knees. I was having a lot of IT issues, and back then when you went to the doctor, they're well, don't do that anymore. It was kind of a common theme, and that didn't seem like it was the greatest answer for me, obviously. So I started kind of just playing around with some things that I thought would help, and found out I was much better at being strong than I was at being fast. So, but just kind of looked into some different things as far as, the strength field, and it's kind of evolved from there. Been coaching for 2 decades now, probably in some form or another. Been training for that long, if not longer, as far as personal training with folks on and off. So from my standpoint, I think it's just kind of a natural evolution, if you will, as far as working with kids and kind of trying to help them get to the next level. And then the same thing with adults, just trying to keep them healthy.
All right. So you were saying working with kids. That was going to be my next question. Like, who's the person that you work with the most? I don't know if it's. I know you work with a lot of kids. I've seen kids who've been, Big Ten football players to all the way to SEC track and field athletes. So you have a wide variety of people you work with. But is it primarily athletes, or do you add in your neighbor that just had a baby and she's trying to lose weight?
I have a fair amount of adult clients, I would say, that are just looking for general fitness, or like you said, hey, I want to run a mini, I want to compete in a physique show at the NPC next month or something like that. So I've got a fair amount of those. I actually have a decent amount of like parent-son, parent-daughter type things where the kids started training with me and their parents were like, hey, what do you do with adults? And Jermaine, I think we've had this conversation before, but it's like a lot of the things that you do to get an athlete better is the same things that you want to do with an adult to keep them healthy, right? So those same things that make us sprint fast are the same things that get us up and down the stairs and moving well, right? So I think maybe they're not the exact, training realm, if you will, but we can learn a lot of things from different disciplines athletically, whether it be a football player or track guy or field hockey or lacrosse or whatever you want to call it, as far as we can take a lot of those same things and kind of help adults stay healthier too.
Yeah. Now you were talking about, like you were just saying, bringing stuff from other places to learn from. Some of the stuff I've seen that your people do, where do you come up with this stuff? Like, for instance, the water beam and the with the bags and everything else. Nobody else does.
Well, there are other people do it. I'm not afraid to poach an idea from someone smarter than me. That's one of the things I've always learned. Even with our coaching with our club, surround yourself with smarter people, and you generally come out all right, right? It's as long as you're making sure you're learning.
Right.
So, but I look at something and it kind of sometimes feeds an idea into something else that I see. So the slosh pipe, I've made some homemade ones, but that's something that is actually on the market and just another version of unstable training. And I think it's something that kind of you can use to your advantage to force some core stabilizers to kick in and things to that effect. And I'm probably oversimplifying a lot of things here, but at the end of the day, it's just making sure we move, right? And I think sometimes we forget that it's probably not as complicated as some folks want to make it.
Yeah.
It's just about getting up and moving and, break the inertia, if you will.
I got you. So with that, is there like anybody that's like ideal, like to be the ideal person for you to work with?
No, I think I enjoy training with all folks. Like I said, I've got stay-at-home moms, got a fair number of athletes. I'm certainly proud of all of the work that they've put in. We've got I probably have more track athletes and football players than anything else, and it's kind of a natural, probably a natural progression with me, considering that I also coach track. So,
yeah. Well, the name is Track Fit, though. Yeah. So I would assume that much. Yeah, with the Track Fit. I'm assuming that name came out of initially working with mostly track athletes.
Yeah, and it's kind of a Coach Mike and I kind of talked about that years ago when we first kind of started doing a lot more things with with athletes and all that. It's kind of a spin of CrossFit, lots of track-based exercises that's going to help you get in shape. And again, that's kind of going back to the fact that you can learn from lots of different disciplines and help it. They think about how great a swimmer's lats and back look, right? We can learn things from them, how they train. Or one of my favorite athletes back in the day, and I can't possibly do it myself, but was a speed skater, Eric Hyden. The dude's quads were just ridiculous, right? And so you look at some of the different training things that other folks did, and you realize that we can kind of cross that all over. I think that's kind of to a degree where CrossFit went, right? And whether you agree with CrossFit or not, I mean, some people do, some people don't. There's things we can learn from it as well, right? Whether it's a power lifter doing a medley, pushing a sled, all those things can factor into whether you're trying to be a better athlete or just try to get some good general fitness in and just move better.
Right. I see a lot of track athletes up on the wall there behind you. Is there anything else in the gym you want to show off? Do you want to give us a quick tour of?
Well, I'm kind of unique as probably with compared to a lot of your people. I do this. I've converted my garage into a personal studio, so it's not the prettiest thing, but it's pretty functional. All the athletes on the wall there are kids that have trained with us for a number of time that are now competing in college, so I always thought that was kind of cool, and to kind of give them their love a little bit as far as the dedication they put in and the belief I have in them, the belief they've had in our program has kind of been good for me, or been special, if you will, as far as it's just fun to watch them continue to grow. I'm sitting on probably one of my favorite machines, which is a bear squat. We do a lot of things like this. I think it's something that's kind of fell out of favor past few years. We do a lot of vertical jump type stuff with this machine. From someone that probably did more lifting heavy when they were younger, I probably do a lot less of that with my athletes because I think it's about moving more, not getting so stiff. So although I have plenty of weights, and we do use them, we probably don't use them as much as one would think.
So what's like your favorite thing to do? I mean, I know you like the bear squat there, but what else? I mean, you like to use the bands a lot, but is it just more coming up with something new that you like, or is it?
No, I mean, there's things that I think we do pretty consistently. I'm a big fan of using slide boards. I mean, that's something, again, that, they started back however many years ago, letting hockey players feel like they're getting on the ice, right? But then you do a lot of lateral things like that. Even for a track athlete, you've got to strengthen the adductors, and things to that effect, and it lets us get our lactic build up a little bit and let us kind of get some conditioning as well without beating up the joints. So I'm a big fan of that. I think you and I talked about this a couple weeks ago, just in general conversation about the buzzwords these days, or your glutes aren't firing and things to that effect, or unlock your hips.
Quad dominant.
These days, right? Your quad dominant, your hips don't fire. So I think a lot of times you tell an athlete that, but you don't really put them in a position where they're having to do what you tell them they're not doing, right? So I think a slide board helps a lot. You hear people you can go to just about any Facebook, you'll see some type of ad that seems like, unlock your hips, here's a secret for $99.99, right?
Right.
I really pound the hip flex. So I think one of the big things there, mobility is obviously important, but I feel like, especially with an athlete, you got to have strength in that area too. One of the things I show my kids a lot, if you Google FloJo's hip flexor, so Florence Griffin Joyner, us old guys know who that is pretty well, right?
Right.
I remember watching her break the world record at IUPUI's, HEROH Stadium back in '88. And if you Google her hip flexor, like just Google that, the image that pops up is just crazy how big and strong that muscle is. It's almost not real, But that's the thing, I think, and the Jamaicans figured it out quite a few years ago, right? They really pound that area as well, as far as just really focus on what it does for us. And as a chiropractor, how important that is, as far as people, they got low back pain and all that, and the psoas is probably as big of a
contributor as to anything. People think it's just the back, but no, it's a lot of times it's the muscles and coming up from the front and the core and all the other stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. So we want to make sure that we're doing all of our mobility and flexibility, with every training session. But we hit those areas pretty hard. Just about every time we're in here, a couple times. If I have a client a couple times a week, we're gonna address that area and try to work on strength there, and again get the glutes strong. I think the slide board helps that a lot. So it's probably one of my favorite tools to use. If I don't know if I have an absolute favorite, but those are probably two of them.
A lot of times I talk about chiropractic in terms of how frequent they need to come, and I always tell them, like, when you first get started, it's going to be a little bit more frequent than later on.
Right.
And I guess also that depends on what type of goals they have when they're dealing with chiropractic. So I'm assuming the same is in relation to training. So I was wondering how often you would have people train.
As far as a lot of the high school athletes that I train, a good portion of them have their weights class in high school, especially the football players. They're going to be an APC and stuff like that. So well, what I do with them a lot of times, in some cases, it's only once a week. So what I'm trying to do is fill the void of stuff that maybe they're not getting there. Because I'm trying to fill the void there of, okay, we're gonna get on the slide board, we're gonna do more dynamic effort stuff. We're gonna try to learn to move a little better. So what I try to do there as much as possible is complement what they're doing at the school without hopefully beating them up, and almost kind of give them a little bit of even a recovery workout type thing.
Gotcha. Well, when you brought up the APC class or whatever the weightlifting class is in school, those classes, like you said, are basically directed by football. And looking at the female athlete, they're not training like football players. Your thoughts on what needs to be altered and something like that for a female athlete?
Strength's certainly not going to hurt him, but I'm getting further and further away more from back to squats, with just about anyone, not just female athletes. I know it's something that we got to do, but I don't think we should rely on them as much as we have been. I think the biggest thing, again, is just start addressing some of the mobility and more dynamic effort. I think it is tough I think it's really tough for the APC coaches, the weight coaches and stuff in high school. It's not a lot different than the classroom, right? So you got one, if you're lucky, hopefully there's a teacher in there helping you, but there's 40 or 50 kids. So it's tough to keep an eye on all that. My whole thing about, obviously I limit myself to a degree by doing this at home. I mean, I've got some overhead that I don't have to worry about there, but my whole philosophy has kind of been keep it small groups so everybody kind of gets the attention that they need. And I think that's one of the biggest things about weight room classes, and that's where a lot of folks are going towards finding their own trainer, is because of the fact that it's a big group. It's tough on the coach. And
then I think you have a chance to give more people have a chance to get a greater experience when it's a small group.
A return on the investment, if you rather. And that part of that was, I've taken my kids when they were younger to other trainers, and the trainers themselves seem to be really knowledgeable, really know what they're doing. But the same thing, there's 20 kids in there, and you're doing a circuit, and my kid looks like he's not doing something right. And I'm like, do I step in? Do I, fix it? And then you're that parent, right? We've all dealt with that as well, of course.
Yeah.
Is it going to enable you to grow as much as maybe some of these other places? I'm clearly not LA Fitness or something like that, where you're trying to get, thousands of members in the door. It's more about, I think, the personal experience and giving the people the feedback that they need, and be able to not just take them through things, but educate them as to why we're doing something and what we need to work on. And you can kind of, you have 3 or 4 kids, up to 6. I'll have, if it's a good group, I'll have 6 in here. That's about my limit for one coach. We've got a couple people that work with me, obviously, that Coach Mike will jump in if I need, if I've got a bigger group, we'll do camps or something. But even there, we're trying to keep it 5 to 6 kids per coach. So we feel like we've got eyes on everyone pretty well. And I think that you can kind of, even with a group there, you can kind of tailor it to an individual somewhat. So,
and I will say that just in observing kids, and we work together, and then seeing the kids who work with you versus the kids who haven't worked with you, I would definitely say you put out a quality product.
Well, I appreciate it.
And it's more than just physically. Like, I think they have a mental level of understanding of what's happening. Like, most people will be like, okay, well, if they're tired, they say they're tired and they're ready to quit. The kids you work with, they can be tired. They may not say a word. You can see it all over their face, but they're consistently going at it. They have more of a business approach to handling their sport, their competition, whatever it may be. I guess that is a good reflection of what you do and how you do it.
I certainly appreciate that. I'd like to take credit for that. I think part of that, though, is the fact I've got a quality group of kids that seek me out, too. So they're generally people that want to compete and they want to get better. And that's the first step every time, right? So if you really want to compete and get better, you're willing to put the work in, it's going to help. I think that still goes back to, like I said, when you're in a small group, you can kind of educate people. I want my clients to be able to do whatever I'm doing without me there. And that's kind of counterintuitive to a lot of people. They feel like, they want you as a trainer, that you want your client to depend on you. But I feel like, again, the more you educate them, hopefully, for one, the more they appreciate what you're doing for them. And I think it's got to be more of a symbiotic relationship like that, right? Where it's not just do this number of sets, do squat, go do these lunges. I think it's okay. Hey, we're targeting this muscle because we need you to get your glutes firing more. Again, that's a big buzzword now, but it's one that does need to happen. I think sometimes we rely on it a little too much as far as addressing some things, but making people understand why we're doing what we're doing and what the end game is, I think, is a big benefit, hopefully.
I know you're located in Avon. If I appreciate you being on here. If people wanted to get a hold of you or work with you, can you give us like what your Instagram is? Because I want people to see what some of the stuff that you show.
So, yeah, my Instagram is TrackFitIndy. Just give me a follow. I should probably make it public. I haven't. I guess I need to go.
You can keep it private. Just make a request.
Yeah. So TrackFitIndy is I'm on Twitter as far as TrackFit Indy TrackFit Dad or TrackFit Dad. I post a decent amount of videos on the Instagram so people can kind of see. I think that's fun for the kids too, or even the adults. They get to get a little love as far as when they're doing something or we're trying something new. It's fun. I think the big thing about Instagram, I think this is the case with a lot of trainers, is you see the stuff that is maybe a little bit unique and different, and they just assume that, okay, that's all you're doing is these crazy exercises or something or what, but we still deadlift, we still squat, we still, do lots of rows and stuff like that maybe doesn't get as much airplay, if you will, but it's still an important component of a training program, right?
Right. Okay. Now, if they wanted to, if you had, like, say somebody's watching this and they want to sign their kid up with you, how would they get in touch? Would they give you a call or?
Yeah, they certainly give me a call. My number is 317-777-3440. Also email me, which email is trackfit2, the number 2 @gmail.com. Happy to entertain and talk to anyone. This already about us. We'll talk about training all day long. It's something that I'm passionate about, I think, and I'm always down to have a conversation at the very least, right?
Yeah, that works. I mean, at least they'll understand if they can. Maybe it's something they're not ready for. At least they find that out. Well, Jess, I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Jermaine. I appreciate you, man. I think again, I said at the beginning, but it's hard to find someone that's willing to work with athletes as well as you do and kind of have an understanding of. I think being a former athlete kind of helps, to understand what they're going through and to be able to get them back on the track. I've seen lots of doctors just basically tell them they're done, and that's never what an athlete wants to hear. So you've done a great job of getting some of my kids that have had things at their different schools or whatnot, just back on track or whatever, performing to the level that they can. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and that's part of like why I got into doing what I do. It's like I was seeing the stuff in athletics, and I had a lot of kids who were, you go send them to the doctor, and then they come home, they say I have to sit out for 3 weeks. And it's primarily when I was coaching over in Illinois, they would come back and say, well, my doctor said I have to sit out for 3 weeks, and I'm like, for what? Like, if you're a track season, that's most of your season, 3 weeks.
Right.
That'll kick you right out of any type of progression or any type of work that you do.
Well, I try to tell kids all the time, if something hurts or this and that, there's always alternatives. We don't just going and sitting on the couch and playing Fortnite's not the answer. Let's figure out a way to keep you moving forward while we're getting it addressed. And like I said, that's where you already know I've sent you more than one. I think I've got kids going to see you today, as a matter of fact. So we appreciate the fact that you work so well with them.
Well, thanks again, and we'll talk soon.